Alright everyone, this is Zach from the Undrafted Experts and welcome to my first 2022 NFL mock draft of this offseason. I'm recording this about a week and a half before the Super Bowl where the Bengals and Rams will face off. So I figure why not go ahead and knock out mock draft number 1 on the Undrafted Experts channel. Of course, we will be hopefully dropping some podcast clips here soon because we are planning on recording a podcast very soon. They've been delayed for a little while, due to personal reasons and, not having, the available time to do much. I mean, the only times most of us have been free have been Saturdays or Sundays, which is when the playoffs have been going on. So we're trying to figure out a good time to get our next episode out. Hopefully it'll be in the next couple days. But if not, well, we're trying. And with the first pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Evan Neal. I mean, their biggest need, in my opinion, is offensive line. Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeaux are both amazing edge rushers, and you could make a case that Jacksonville also could use an edge rusher. However, they do have Josh Allen, who has been pretty good for them and one of the few bright spots on that Jaguars roster. And they have Trevor Lawrence on their roster, who has been getting killed so far and put up one of the worst quarterback stat lines as a rookie. And I don't believe that about 75% of his interceptions, incompletions, or errant throws are on him. I think the offensive line has been abysmal. You really don't have much on that line. Cam Robinson is set to be a free agent, so this would be an immediate replacement for him. And yes, you have Brandon Linder under contract for one more year. However, he's been injured a lot, and the backup center, I don't remember his name, has been doing a decent enough job for not being the true starter for that team. So I think getting yourself a proper left tackle with some seriously high potential is key to helping out Trevor Lawrence and giving him a chance to actually make some plays for the Jaguars offense. And then at number 2, I'm going with Aiden Hutchinson to the Lions. I mean, it makes the most sense to me. You're bringing in a local guy in Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, he's played at Ann Arbor, and then you're bringing him into Detroit. It's fitting. And I mean, one of the biggest needs for the Lions, in my opinion, is an edge rusher. You really don't have much in terms of a front seven for the Lions. And you could make a case for maybe reaching on a quarterback, but I don't see a reason to go out and get a quarterback in a class that's very shaky right now and pass up on one of the most valuable positions in football right now in an elite edge rusher. And I mean, you could also make a case for Kayvon Thibodeaux, but Aiden Hutchinson looked like the better player this season of college football. And that's what matters most when it comes to drafting. I mean, I understand on this particular site that I'm using, Kayvon Thibodeaux is the number 1 prospect. But I've liked what I've seen out of Aiden Hutchinson more. Thibodeau's, he's got the pieces. He's got the assets needed to be an amazing player. But Aiden Hutchinson really put it together for an amazing year for Michigan that ended up leading his team to the college football playoff. They didn't win it, but, Still a successful season overall. And then you've got, moving on to pick number 3, you have Houston. I think if you get Kayvon Thibodeau to fall into your lap, you take it. I mean, same deal with the Lions. There's a lot of issues with the Texans team. And I mean, you've still got the major question mark in Deshaun Watson. But you really have not been able to get anything of a decent edge rushing group in Houston since you traded away J.J. Watt. I mean, you hoped to have gotten somebody by this point that could pressure the quarterback consistently. And with Kayvon Thibodeau on the board, I mean, it makes a ton of sense to go out and get a guy similar with Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, it's about the same argument. Get a guy who should be able to consistently pressure the quarterback and make a major impact on a front seven that was basically abysmal for most of the season. I mean, they really did not do much in Houston. And now moving on to the 4th spot, this one, it's interesting for me. You would think I would immediately take Derek Stingley Jr. I mean, it just seems like the thing that the Jets need more than anything. But I have stated it before. I'm not that high on Derek Stingley Jr. I mean, the first video on this channel that I produced, I made a deal about how I don't really like what I see in Derek Stingley Jr. He's got the potential, but I don't know if I like him as a top 5 player. Top 10, more than likely. I don't know about top 5. Somebody I do think that is top 5, however, that is also a need for the Jets is safety. So I'm taking Kyle Hamilton at 4. You can yell at me all you want about how good Derek Stingley Jr. is. I understand how good he's been. But I have another player in mind for the Jets because they do have pick number 10. I have another player in mind for them that he may be as good as Stingley. He may not be. But he can play very similarly to how Stingley did for LSU. And you also get the best safety prospect that we've seen in years in New York. And sticking with New York, we move to the Giants. I mean, it seems to me it makes the most sense. Get Ika Mekwonu out of NC State. Get yourself another offensive tackle. I understand you have Andrew Thomas, but the thing with Mekwonu, he can play tackle, he can play guard. I don't think he can play center, from what I'm aware. I do not believe he's a great center. But to me, that makes the most sense. I mean, Andrew Thomas has been decent, but you still have a ton of issues on that offensive line. So why not go out and get another top offensive line prospect in Mekwonu to maybe try and protect Daniel Jones if that's the guy long term. I mean, I'm hearing that their new head coach is very high on Daniel Jones, so he may be the guy going forward for the Giants, even if the fan base does not want that at this point. As we're going to go ahead and move on to the Carolina Panthers. This is the first spot I would consider quarterback. I would consider Pickett here. I would consider Corral even. But I'm actually going to go a different route than some. I think this is where Charles Cross could go. You know, 3rd offensive tackle in the class. Still a very good prospect overall. And I mean, you look at the Carolina offensive line, practically non-existent. Sam Darnold, P.J. Walker, Cam Newton, all of them suffered from having next to no protection. So why not go out and get a really good offensive lineman who, yes, he may not be an immediate, like, turn the team around and become amazing, but if you're Carolina, it's time for a big time rebuild. And I don't think getting a quarterback in this class at number 6 is the best decision. I think that the best quarterbacks in this class, whether it being, you've got Pickett, Corral, Willis, Howell, Ritter, Carson Strong. I don't see any of them going till at least, like, I think 8 is about the earliest I see most of them going. This does not seem like a strong QB class, though I could easily see a quarterback being picked up by the Panthers. I'm going to go with the more safe route and grab an offensive lineman to potentially protect Sam Darnold or potentially protect another quarterback next year or a few years from now. And then the Giants back up on the clock. A lot of people like Tyler Linderbaum here, and I do understand that. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to go out and grab what's seemingly a generational center. But another option that I like to explore with the Giants, what if they go and get an edge rusher? George Karlaftis, in my opinion, is a really good edge rusher. He's not getting as much hype as Thibodeau or Hutchinson. I mean, those two seem like generational guys. But I think Karlaftis will be somewhere in that very good range. Possibly elite. And if you're the Giants who still need pass rush after all the times you've drafted front 7 players, it does not make sense to me how they are still in need of edge rushers because of how many times they've drafted a front 7 player and yet nobody can pressure the quarterback. I think Karlaftis is finally, he might be the guy to finally shore up the front 7 and, actually make things happen. So I'm going to give him to the Giants here at 7. I understand your cases for Linderbaum. I'll probably put Linderbaum at 7 to the Giants in other mock drafts. But for this particular one, I want to do something a bit different and look at some other options other than Linderbaum. Let's start thinking about a potential edge rusher as well instead of full-on offensive line. Because do we really think the Giants are going to take double offensive linemen at 5 and 7, even if they should? Let's just think about that for a moment. Moving on to number 8, you have the Atlanta Falcons. There's a case to be made to grab Kenny Pickett, which is why I said around the 8 range is where I see quarterbacks going. There's a case to be made for Pickett, but in this particular scenario, you've got Derek Stingley Jr., who is being hyped up as a potential top 5 prospect, who I think it's going to be similar to Farley, maybe not Caleb Farley last year. Of course, not the exact same, but Caleb Farley had back surgery not long before the draft and fell heavily down the board. I don't think that's going to be the case directly for Stingley. I don't think he falls that far because of injuries. But I like the idea of him going at number 8. You have A.J. Terrell, I understand. And I also understand the fact that Matt Ryan is getting old. But I don't see the Falcons taking a quarterback just yet. I don't know if they're particularly, set in stone on keeping Matt Ryan, but I can also see them bringing in a veteran quarterback, like a Jimmy G or a Jameis Winston, somebody like that here this offseason to potentially be the successor to Matt Ryan instead of drafting a rookie. Especially in this class, which is very shaky with QBs, as I mentioned before. But here we are with the Broncos. The Aaron Rodgers rumors are flying across the nation again, and everyone thinks that the Broncos are going to be a top destination for Aaron Rodgers, along with Devontae Adams. And it makes sense. They seem to be one quarterback away for the past 4 years. However, in this world, we have no idea if Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with the Broncos or get traded to the Broncos, I might add. We don't know. And I'm going to go ahead and give them Kenny Pickett. Some questions are being raised about his hand size here over the past few days because he didn't end up getting them measured for the Senior Bowl. However, it does seem like he will be getting them measured for the Combine. And I've never understood the argument over a quarterback having small hands, especially when we've seen a lot of QBs with reported smaller hands go out and be generational quarterbacks as of late. So I think the smaller hands argument, to an extent, is a bit overhyped and is a bit too big of a deal for most teams. So I'm keeping Kenny Pickett at 9. And then the Jets come around. I mentioned that there was a corner I liked that maybe is not as good as Stingley to most people's eyes. But in my eyes, when I see somebody who shut down practically everyone he went against, including Jamison Williams in the college football playoff, I think you have to go with Sauce Gardner here. You get your number one cornerback for the future, and then you also get Kyle Hamilton at 4. It makes the most sense to me to go out and play it that way, because do you really think Kyle Hamilton's going to fall to 10? Probably not. I could see, if Kyle Hamilton kept falling, I could see, I could see the Falcons going out and getting him. You could potentially, I don't think the Panthers would take a shot. I don't think the Giants would. I mean, they might consider it, but I don't think it'd be a big need for them, per se. And of course, the Broncos are probably going quarterback regardless. So there could be a scenario where Kyle Hamilton falls to 10 and you get Stingley at 4. It could go either way. But in this scenario, I think you go ahead and lock up Kyle Hamilton, who's pretty much like the surefire best safety in the class. And then come around and get a shutdown corner in Ahmad Gardner or Sauce Gardner, however you want to call him, at number 10. It seems to be the more sensible way, in my opinion, considering how I feel about Derek Stingley Jr. Now, at number 11 for the Washington football team, which actually, by the time this video goes up, we should be like 24 hours away from the football team actually getting a name. So, I've heard Admirals. What was the other one I heard? It wasn't Commanders, I don't think. I'm trying to think. It was Admirals and something else. Seemed to be like the 2 most likely options. And whichever one they take, I'm all for it. I mean, I think the Washington football team just is a terrible name. I wouldn't even mind if they kept this logo, like the W the way it is. I kind of like that, but we'll see what they do. But for draft purposes, at number 11, got them taking Matt Corral. It's been reported they're planning to make a major push for a quarterback this offseason, whether that's Rodgers, whether that is Jimmy G, whether that is Jameis Winston. I mean, those are the 3 that always come to mind with trade rumors. I mean, Deshaun Watson's even up there. If you want to take a risk, I don't think the football team is a place you want to risk more scandals. This seems like a terrible idea, but I'm still in on the idea of Matt Corral being one of the top quarterbacks. I mean, it's between Pickett and Corral for me right now. I do think Malik Willis has insane upside. I do see a potential Lamar Jackson-like player, but I'm not sure what team will be able to consistently play call around that and give him a proper team to work with. Because he has some inconsistencies about his game that worries a lot of people. So we'll see. I mean, I've got Corral here. It could change by the time the draft comes around. But at number 12, I've got the Minnesota Vikings taking David Ajabo out of Michigan. His stock exploded this season. I mean, he was on nobody's radar until about midway through the season. And him and Hutchinson both have had amazing seasons. It's the same deal as before. Could they be one-hit wonders? We don't know, per se. I don't think they are. And I mean, David Ajabo has only played the position, I believe I heard, for 4 years. And is looked at as potential top-tier edge rusher in this class. The potential's there for him to be insanely good. And the Minnesota Vikings desperately need help on defense. You could take a corner here. Andrew Booth Jr. is available. I could understand that. However, in my opinion, an edge rusher is the most valuable position in football. I said it earlier. So I don't see a world where the Vikings pass up on a potential generational edge rusher in Ajabo at 12 especially. Of course, Andrew Booth Jr., like I said, could be the guy. We'll see. But I think he's going to end up falling down this class a little bit further. I think where they've got him ranked on this site at 16 is very fair. And I do have my eye on a potential team to go out and get him here in a few picks. Now, the Cleveland Browns at 13, I think it's Garrett Wilson. I mean, they traded away Odell, and it was clear as day that Odell was not the issue for Cleveland. So you would think I would make a deal about going out and drafting a quarterback or saying get Baker Mayfield out of here. I don't know how much of that is on Baker even at the end of the day. I don't think Baker is amazing. However, what you have to remember is he has struggled with injuries all year. And it didn't seem like him and Odell ever had a proper connection. Of course, now Odell's with Stafford, and it's been much better for him. So it could have just been a thing where Baker and Odell never had the chemistry. So, getting Garrett Wilson in here, see if maybe him and Baker can get some chemistry alongside Jarvis Landry. I mean, it's clear to me the Browns need a receiver. You could go with an edge rusher, but I don't believe there's really one that I'm that interested in past this point. Drake Jackson's pretty good, but I don't know how high you want to draft him. I don't think he's number 13 good right now. Could turn out to be number 13 good, but not as of now. So you go out and get the best receiver in the class, according to most. And you potentially bolster up an offense that, with potentially healthy Baker Mayfield, assuming they bring him back, could be another potential playoff run for the Browns. Then again, we've said it for 3 years now, and they've won one playoff game in that stretch. So, we'll see. Now, with the Ravens at number 14, this is where I think Tyler Linderbaum stops falling in my draft. I understand you have Bradley Bozeman, but he is also set to be a free agent. So, why not go ahead and draft what's seemingly a generational center and move on from Bozeman instead of re-signing him for what will potentially be a big-time contract? Just go out and get a rookie who's seemingly a lock to be an all-pro center going forward. And then you can use the money that you save from not signing Bozeman to go out and help out with the rest of the O-line, or go out and sign some more depth at cornerback, considering he's dealt with a ton of injuries. I don't think cornerback is their direct need, even though, of course, their secondary was bad last year, because I believe most of their problem with the secondary was 100% based on injuries. So, going out and getting one of the best center prospects we've seen in years, instead of re-signing one of your veterans, saves you money, and you're getting potentially a better player. We'll see how it all shakes out. So now I have the Eagles with back-to-back picks. I'll probably do this one pretty quickly because, of course, they're back-to-back picks, and they make the most sense to me. I'm taking Devin Lloyd at 15. I've talked about how Nakobe Dean is my favorite linebacker prospect in this class. However, Devin Lloyd seems to be a safer pick for most and is your prototypical linebacker from what I'm seeing. So, I think Devin Lloyd will probably go before Nakobe Dean at the end of the day. And then, of course, at 16, I have Andrew Booth Jr. going to the Eagles. I mean, Darius Slay is only getting older by the day. I think he's 31 at this point. And what else do they have at cornerback? Seemingly nothing. So why not go out and get a corner who has been pretty good? Doesn't have much hype behind him, but has been pretty good. And then you secure your CB2 and your possible next CB1 for the next 4 to 5 years. Seems like an easy pick to me, at least. Now, the Chargers come up at 17. Their run defense was horrible. So why not throw in somebody who's being compared to Vince Wilfork? Let's get Jordan Davis into Los Angeles to be a true run-stopping defensive tackle. I mean, he just looks like a monster when you watch his tape. One of my favorite players in the class. So why not go out and give him to a team that has been so badly in need of help on the interior defensive line? I mean, you drafted linebackers. You could say Nakobe Dean possibly here as well, but I just don't see it happening. At least, in my opinion, I don't see it happening. You've got Kenneth Murray, who's been decent from what I'm aware of. And, just interior D-line seems to be the most important need for the Chargers. And you get, in my opinion, the best one. DeMarvin Leal has a potential stake as the best one, but it's Jordan Davis for me. And now for the Saints at 18, you would think I would go Jamison Williams, right? I'm going with the guy that I see as the best receiver in this class, Treylon Burks. One of the most sure-handed receivers I've seen in years. has the physical attributes, is able to contest the ball consistently, and has the speed to get open almost and create separation almost every time he's on the field. Why wouldn't you take that as your number one receiver in New Orleans? Potentially getting Michael Thomas back next year. We've said that for 2 years now. So go out and get yourself a true number one who, even if Michael Thomas comes back, you've got 2 number one receivers now. All right, and at number 19, I think it makes most sense for the Eagles after taking Devin Lloyd and Andrew Booth Jr. to turn around and grab Jameson Williams. I mean, he did have his ACL get destroyed in the championship game, but it's seeming more and more like ACL injuries are becoming less impactful due to the way modern medicine is able to rehabilitate ACL injuries. So it may not be as big as a concern as it would have been 5 years ago. And of course, for the Eagles, getting yourself another receiver when you have 3 first-round picks, I mean, why not? You've got Devontae Smith, and Jalen Reagor has been a terrible experiment. So why not go out and get a good wide receiver 2, potential wide receiver 1 if Devontae Smith doesn't develop well? And then you should be practically set on receiver going forward. And of course at 20, you've got my Pittsburgh Steelers. To me, it only makes sense to go with Kenyon Green here out of Texas A&M. We need guard help very badly. There's not really a quarterback here that I like. I've been interested in Malik Willis here at 20. Potentially, if Kenny Pickett starts to fall again, I'd be very interested in him at 20. But does not seem like either would be the best pick here. So fixing the offensive line and getting it ready for potential quarterback in the rookie quarterback in 2023 seems like the best idea to me, at least. Of course, if you can go out and get a Rodgers in a trade or something like that, then fixing the offensive line is even more important. But Kenyon Green, in my opinion, is the safest pick here for the Steelers with what's available. And then at 21 for the Patriots, Chris Olave to me just seems like a Patriots pick. They need a number one receiver really badly. And Olave, in my opinion, is going to provide that for a lot of teams. When I looked at his tape before the college football season this year, I wasn't that impressed. I saw mid to late second rounder. But after this season, I can see that first round talent that a lot of people saw in Olave. He's finally showing the ability to contest the catch and actively create separation on a consistent basis, which I didn't see from his tape in the 2020 season. And the Patriots desperately need that for Mac Jones. So I see him taking the potential best receiver remaining on the board at 21 with Chris Olave. And then the Raiders at 22. It's interesting to me. I think DeMarvin Leal makes the most sense to me. I mean, you've got the potential to shore up a defensive line that just wasn't that great outside of Max Crosby. Um, and you need help with your run defense, in my opinion. And DeMarvin Leal can provide that. So I will be taking him at 22. Pretty good defensive tackle. Can play any position on the D-line. So if you need him to rush the passer, I'm pretty sure he can provide that for you. I mean, it's not a speedy pick, which is uncharacteristic for the Raiders, but in my opinion, this is the smart pick for them. And then at 23, you've got the Cardinals. They need cornerback help, and I've been very high on Kyer Elam. He struggled with injuries this year, which knocks him down my board again, similarly to the way Stingley fell down the board. But I don't see the Cardinals passing up on Elam at this point. I mean, he was regarded as it's Stingley or Elam at the start of this year as the best corners in the class. So the fact that you have a chance to get him at the later half of the first round, it's hard to pass up on him. And now you get to the Cowboys, which are going to be in a weird position here. Because I really like the idea of getting Nakobe Dean and adding him to that defensive group with Micah Parsons. However, I also like the idea of getting someone like Trevor Penning and start the potential rebuild of that offensive line. Because they're not getting any younger. And you're looking at Tyron Smith probably retiring soon. Zach Martin, I don't think he retires soon, but he's getting up there in age. And I also like the prospect of Nakobe Dean there, because then you can move Micah Parsons to a full-on edge rushing role, or you put Nakobe Dean at edge rusher and let Micah Parsons be a true linebacker. I'm not sure which way to go with them. But in this instance, I'm going to go ahead. I think I'm going to give him Nakobe Dean this time around. I could easily see them taking an actual offensive lineman and not going linebacker here. But the Cowboys at 24 are going to be in a weird spot depending on how the draft board shakes out. And in my opinion, doubling up on linebacker and getting the option of putting one or the other as an edge rusher seems like the smart decision to me with what's available. And now you have the Bills on the board. I like the idea of a receiver. However, I think Gabriel Davis is starting to come alive as a number 2 for them. So I don't really see a reason to take one in the first round. I do still like the idea of an offensive lineman. I also like a possible cornerback. In this instance, I'm going to go with Trevor Penning. You know, Cowboys in this scenario pass on him, and I see the Bills jumping on him. It all depends on how much you value Penning. I mean, the Bills don't particularly need offensive line that badly, but it's always nice to have depth at the position. Of course, you'd rather them get a guard, but there's not many available at this point. I mean, you could go down here to Zion Johnson. You could go Darian Kennard, who I'm pretty sure has played all the positions. But it's really up to you what way you want to go at that. The Bills really don't need much, in my opinion. Then you get to the Tennessee Titans at 26. My opinion, They need a speedy receiver. They need and Jahan Dotson, in my opinion, could be very similar to a Tyreek Hill type role for some teams. I mean, he runs like a 4.37 or something like that. Insanely fast. Why would you not want that on the Titans offense, which A.J. Brown is a good receiver for contested catches. Julio Jones is pretty old at this point, as much as I hate to think about that, and is deteriorating quickly. And then you've got a ton of wide receiver 4s on the roster. So go ahead and bring in a true speed demon in Jahan Dotson, who can potentially be a Titans version of Tyreek Hill. And now you get to the Buccaneers, which the news this time officially broke from Tom Brady himself that he is retiring. So the Bucs now have a very interesting path to go here. They need secondary help. However, they also don't have a quarterback at this point. So you could go with Willis or Sam Howell here. Or you could go and grab Trent McDuffie or Roger McCreary, who I think are both pretty good corners that are being overshadowed by some of the top guys. Because this is a pretty good corner class, in my opinion. You could also go out and get a receiver, because Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown are gone. Of course, for different reasons, but they are gone. In this scenario, I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give the Bucs Trent McDuffie. I'm going to give him a good cornerback. I think this would be a great spot for Malik Willis to go, because in my opinion, Malik Willis needs a really good quarterbacks coach or someone who can really help him learn the ways of the NFL. And I mean, you think about it, Bruce Arians is one of the best to ever do it. So why wouldn't you want Malik Willis to learn from Bruce Arians? I mean, I don't know what the direction will be for the Bucs after this year. Now that Brady's gone, I don't know if they go out and get a rookie quarterback. I also don't know if they try to bring in a Rodgers or try to bring in a free agent quarterback to just hold over the situation for another year. I don't know. And then for Green Bay, once again, as I just mentioned, Aaron Rodgers is potentially going to be on the move this year. Devontae Adams is a free agent. And I'm going to do something that the Green Bay Packers never did for Aaron Rodgers, that maybe keeps him in town if they bring back Devontae Adams as well. We'll give him Drake London, a top receiver who is going to be a bit of a risky pick for anyone in the first round, because he did have a serious leg injury this college football season. But the potential's there for him to be a top-tier receiver in the NFL. And if you want to find a way at this point, if you're Green Bay, to try and bring back Rodgers, you try to get a rookie receiver who has the potential to be great. Otherwise, you're getting a receiver for Jordan Love. So, it's an interesting situation for Green Bay. I mean, Tampa Bay and Green Bay are both in weird situations going forward, both potentially losing their cornerstones. Then you have Miami at 29. They really need offensive line help. And this is one of the few times I will reach on a player just because they need the help at the position. I'm getting him Darian Kinnard out of Kentucky. I like what I see from his tape. And as I said, in this scenario, you typically would probably see me take, Trayvon Walker, Roger McCreary, because they're near the top of the board. And Darian Kinnard's like in the 40s, or almost in the 40s. But the Dolphins are in that desperate need for offensive line help. I think they'll take damn near anyone if they're in the top 100. Then you land on the Kansas City Chiefs at 30. And with what's available on the board at this point, there's really not a top receiver remaining. David Bell is a solid option. George Pickens could be a solid second-round option. Other than that, there's really not much in terms of receiver left for them. And Jackson Kirkland, actually, it's being reported he will be going back to college football this year instead of being available. Even though he's a second-round prospect right now. It's just something to point out. So in this scenario, I think it only makes sense for a team that needs cornerback help to bring in Roger McCreary at number 30. The secondary, it got better over time, but was still pretty bad. And you're potentially getting a guy, I don't know if he'll be a CB1, but at least a CB2. And at the end of the first round, you really can't ask for that much when you're ranked as like the 6th or 7th corner in the class. Then we get to the Bengals. So of course, in this world, 31 or 32 could flip. It could be Bengals at 32. In this scenario, the Bengals are put at 31. Offensive line makes the most sense to me. And this is another one where, similar to the Dolphins, I'm okay with reaching a little bit here. Bernard Raymond out of Central Michigan has been getting some hype recently. I have not watched his tape, but from what I'm hearing, he's an interesting prospect because he's got the size to play the position. And at this point, I mean, the Bengals' offensive line has done a good enough job. I mean, obviously, they're in the Super Bowl. But you always want to improve on a position that was considered one of the worst in football last year, was their offensive line. And then, magically this year, they're really good at the position. So I don't see a reason to go out and just ignore the position at this point, at least. And then for the final pick of this mock draft, the Lions are back up on the clock. And this is where I see Malik Willis going. To me, makes the most sense. And I mean, you just look at it, I mean, it's the exact same scenario as Lamar Jackson in 2018. Grab a guy that's going to be a project quarterback for most teams at the end of the first, so that you get the 5th-year option if he turns out to be really good. And of course, that leaves, Sam Howell on the board for the second round. I could see a team trading up to try and get him on a 5th-year option. But this is my first mock draft of this 2022 offseason. Let me know how you feel about some of these picks in the comments. I mean, I think for what it's worth, this is one of the better mock drafts out there. I mean, obviously, you could make a deal about Nakobe Dean maybe going to a different team. You could make a case that maybe wide receiver is not the need for the Titans. You could make a case corner is not the need for the Chiefs. I mean, there's a lot of ways you could go. But thank you all for watching this mock draft. And I will see you all, hopefully, with some podcast clips in the next few days. Have a good rest of your day.